Hello and welcome to the MBM podcast, where you'll learn to master the business of yoga. MBM is a proud part of the Wander Barn Podcast Network, and I'm your host, Amanda Kingsmith. I'm a 500-hour registered yoga teacher, a yoga business coach, and a total business geek. Here at MBM, you'll learn everything you need to know to create a sustainable yoga business by learning from myself and guests from around the world about how they built their yoga businesses, and about how you too can become a successful yoga teacher, studio owner, and much more. All right, let's dive in. Hey friends, I just wanted to pop in and talk a little bit about MBM Behind the Scenes. When I entered the yoga world as a teacher, I was surprised by how many yoga teachers were struggling with the business side of yoga. And that's why I created MBM. MBM helps yoga teachers and studio owners become entrepreneurs. It helps you to go from surviving to thriving with your yoga business. I am on a mission to change the yoga industry, to teach yoga teachers and studio owners about the business of yoga, and to help you feel more confident, successful, and abundant. After releasing hundreds of podcast episodes, I want to create content that dives deeper into helping yoga entrepreneurs thrive and elevate their businesses. This is where MBM Behind the Scenes comes in. Each week, you will get bonus content from the weekly guest or myself, diving deeper into how you can take the teachings and apply them to your business. This podcast is designed for yoga teachers and studio owners who are ready to take it to the next level. If you enjoy MBM and have been looking for an affordable way to learn more, this is it. For the cost of 2 lattes per month, you will get never-before-heard content that you can't access anywhere else that will give you tangible ways to dive deeper into your yoga business. If this sounds like something you're interested in, let's dive in. Head on over to patreon.com/MBM Yoga and sign up to get behind the scenes now. Once again, that's patreon.com/MBOM Yoga to get all the exclusive behind the scenes content. I'll see you there. Hello, everyone, and welcome back for another episode of the MBM podcast. I am so excited that you've decided to join me for today's episode of the show. This podcast is brought to you in partnership with Offering Tree. Offering Tree makes digital marketing fun, easy, and affordable. They are your one-stop shop for your website, scheduling software, membership management, payment, email newsletter, and more. Keep listening to hear how you can use Offering Tree to spend more time teaching and less time managing. Because as yoga teachers, that's definitely what we want, right? And so today on the show, I am really excited to be joined by Brett Larkin. Brett is the founder of Uplifted Yoga, an online yoga and meditation community empowering students to personalize their practice and ignite their best life on and off the mat. She's instructed at top studios, companies like Google and Pinterest, and leads the world's most interactive online yoga teacher training programs. She teaches to a social media following of over 400,000 people. Her content on YouTube is streamed for 3 million minutes each month, and so much more. Basically, Brett knows what the online world of teaching is like. She has been doing this for a long, long time. So on this episode of the show, we dive into her yoga story, why she decided to become a yoga teacher, and then we talk a little bit about her career, how she started out, what made her decide to go online. We talk about why she created an online teacher training program long before Yoga Alliance was ever approving that. And then we talked a little bit about top tips for creating a great online program, as well as everything she's learned throughout her career. So this episode is jam-packed with goodness and so much learning. And Brett is just really, really incredible. So I know you're going to love this episode. All right, without further ado, here she is. Welcome to the podcast today, Brett. I'm super excited to have you here with me.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm thrilled.
Yeah, I'm super excited to be chatting with you. I've been following you online for many years now. You have created an amazing online business, and I'm so excited to learn more about that. But before we dive into that, I was wondering if we could go back in time and talk about your yoga journey. Can you share how you first got into yoga?
Yes. I mean, wow. I feel like everyone who loves yoga, it's like a love story, talking about when you first started yoga and how you found it. But The short version is that I was a dancer as a young person and my whole teenagehood, and an injury eventually prevented me from, really pursuing ballet at the level I wanted. But in college, I was still doing a lot of Pilates, and I was loving Pilates. And I had a boyfriend at the time who was really into meditation, which I thought was interesting. So he was kind of trying to get me into meditating. And I was dabbling in it, but he kept really encouraging me to try yoga because he kept saying, with my dance background and Pilates, and now I was meditating with him, it would just make so much sense. And of course, I was like, yoga's for wimps. Absolutely not. I would never do anything, like that. But that was kind of my gateway. He encouraged me, and I ended up trying a Bikram class. Of course, that's where, when you're like the hardcore dancer type, I feel like a lot of us end up, is in Bikram as sort of our gateway into yoga. And then, from Bikram, I just began exploring all the different styles, and it was just this huge love story that kicked off from there.
Yeah, that's amazing. I love that. And I was a competitive dancer in high school, so I can definitely relate to elements of your story, and definitely also found I started with some slower classes, and I remember being in the classes just like trying to work harder. And then when I discovered Bikram as well, it was like, okay, I can show up for this. Like, this is pretty awesome, because it was like worked me harder than the other classes. I got sweatier. It felt like more of a workout. And it's so funny now because my practice has evolved so much that now I'm like, no, I don't really want to do that. I just want to, chill and do other poses and stuff like that. So I love hearing those types of journeys.
Yes, I'm so grateful to Bikram yoga because I think it meets so many of us where we are when we first start the journey. So I have nothing but respect for Bikram yoga.
Absolutely. And so at what point did you decide, I want to teach this? I want to become a yoga teacher?
I was searching for a studio to do my first yoga teacher training because I'd fallen so deeply in love with the practice, and I just knew I needed more. I wanted more. I admired all my teachers so much. I wanted to be like them. I didn't really have a plan. I didn't think I'd ever really teach yoga. I just knew that that was the next step. And, I wanted to drink yoga out of a fire hydrant, So I was luckily living in Manhattan at the time, which I think even to this day, I might say has the best yoga in the world, at least that I've experienced. For me, better than when I lived in San Francisco. I mean, Manhattan's just incredible. So I was very fortunate. I just started dating all the different styles of yoga, going to every yoga studio I could. And I was really looking for that studio that would speak to me at a deeper level and that would have a teacher training program that I could feel confident enrolling in. And when I found Ishta Yoga, Ishta stands for Integrated Science of Tantra, Hatha, and Ayurveda. It's founded by Alan Finger, who was the original co-founder of YogaWorks, actually. When I stepped into that studio and met Alan and his wife and some of my other first teachers there, it just felt like coming home. It felt like what I'd always been searching for. So I ended up doing my training there with them, and of course, loving every moment of it.
Yeah, that's incredible. I love hearing that. And did you know as soon as you did your training that you wanted to teach, or what did that kind of look like at that point in terms of like your career and your yoga practice?
No. So I was in denial big time about how much I wanted to teach, how much I loved yoga. I really self-sabotaged for a number of years. So I love sharing this story with my teacher trainees and, and other folks on this path, because I was kind of living this unfulfilled life as a secret healer. I knew I was a healer, meaning I knew deep down I wanted to actually touch and heal people with my hands. Which led me also eventually going to massage school. I knew that I wanted to inspire and teach in a yoga classroom, kind of like the teachers I admired. But I had major money blocks. I just felt like doing that would be career suicide, that I would never make a living teaching yoga, that my parents would disown me. I mean, you name it. I had all the fears, all the blocks. So I wasn't even honest with myself, I don't think, for 2 or 3 years about how much I wanted this to be my career. I was just kind of teaching friends, teaching family on the side. I wasn't being honest with myself. And I wish, I regret those years because I actually could have gotten started so much sooner had I got out of my own way.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that because I think that there's, I can certainly relate to that in many ways. And I'm sure that listeners listening to this also can. I would love to hear kind of how you were able to get past those blocks and eventually allow yourself to be successful because you've created this really successful business at this point. I'd love to hear kind of like how you were able to get there.
It was a very long journey. I think what worked well for me and maybe can work well for other people listening is just to take whatever small, tiny baby steps forward you can, despite all the fear. Because I felt fear all the time. I was too afraid to teach at a yoga studio. I was too afraid to approach a studio owner. But I wasn't so afraid that I couldn't teach family and friends. So I was doing that. So, I mean, I am very proud of myself in the sense that I did get into action despite a lot of fear in the ways that felt the least scary to me, I guess, which is actually what led to me putting up my first video on YouTube because I was too scared to teach in person or talk to a studio or anything like that. I filmed a video of myself doing yoga and put it on YouTube. And while that's counterintuitive, because a lot of people might be like, that's way scarier than teaching in real life. Because of my dance background, I had always been really comfortable, like to go to all these dance camps and auditions. I had to film videos of myself and submit them. Doing ballet or doing dance from a very young age. I went to film school. I love like being behind the camera, being in front of the camera. I love editing. Like that's just always been a passion of mine. So those things just didn't feel scary to me because I was more familiar with them. And so as strange as it sounds, what happened is that I designed a yoga sequence I really loved. Kind of like with dance, I was like, I really want to remember this sequence. Kind of like with dance, you're like, oh, I want to remember this choreography or something I created. So I decided to film it. And then I put the video on YouTube, not just, I don't know, because that's where you put videos. I wasn't really even expecting anyone to find it or do it or anything like that. So that was kind of the first baby step I took towards my dreams, I guess you could say. And while for many people that you might be like, oh, that would be more intimidating to me than teaching in a studio. For me, it was actually less scary because I didn't have to talk to anyone. I didn't have to interact. I was just able to sort of, I'm a total, as I said, I love cameras. I love editing. It's like totally my comfort zone. So I was just able to record and preserve this sequence and put it up on YouTube. And that was the first little thing I did that was not being a total chicken.
Yeah, no, I love that. I love that you took like a baby step towards getting over your fears and then also, finding something that was within your comfort zone. So, like you said, maybe for somebody listening, they're like, that's totally terrifying. I can't imagine doing that. But maybe for them, teaching in front of their group of best friends is something that can be that baby step that feels more comfortable. So, I think the idea is like, start just taking those little steps to pushing past your fear. And so I'd love to know, like, did you continue building YouTube from there? Did you work into teaching in person or what did things kind of look like for you at that point?
Both. This is why it's so important to get into action, even the smallest action, because the universe starts to engage with you and respond once it sees you putting yourself out there. So what happened is people started to do this video on YouTube and comment and say that they liked it. And it just blew my mind. So of course I thought, I should put another one up and then another. Oh, I should put one up every week. So pretty quickly, I started getting excited about the traction that I was seeing on YouTube and the channel started growing. So that was hugely validating and exciting. And it actually gave me the confidence to then do the teaching in real life, right? Like approach the studio owners, start having some of those challenging conversations about getting on the sub list and telling them that they should give me a shot and all those kind of things. And then over the course of, 2 or 3 years, the channel grew and grew. I ended up teaching at every single studio that I had set my eyes on, some of them, evolving into like primetime slots. So it really just shows when you're focused, when you're dedicated, when you start advocating for yourself, which, I finally got enough confidence that I could do that. Things started escalating very, very quickly. I still had my full-time corporate job at the time and luckily was able to transition to working fully from home. So that really helped me in terms of being able to teach a lunchtime yoga class, for example, or film at night or on the weekends. But things definitely felt like they were moving in the right direction. I felt like I was a yoga teacher.
Yeah, I love that. And so you must have been like hustling, teaching yoga, working full time, and then creating YouTube videos. How did you balance all of that?
It's funny. It was easy to balance. I wasn't married. I didn't have kids. I didn't have a mortgage. Like in retrospect, balance is way harder now. I didn't have any other commitments in my life at that time. So and I was passionate. So I was passionate about the yoga and I was scared to leave corporate. So those two things together, I just made both work and it was very busy. But I think, hustle is required for making a change, making a career switch, making your dreams come true. So I was willing to put in that work.
Yeah, 100%. I am so excited to welcome back Offering Tree as our sponsor. You've heard me talk about them in the past, and many of you are already among their growing community of happy Offering Tree users. With everything that goes into running your yoga business, Offering Tree created a single platform that can solve all your marketing and time management headaches. With a single account, you can create a website in minutes, set up a newsletter, create a blog, schedule classes, and take payment. The great part is that all of Offering Tree's features work seamlessly together, so you don't need to pay for and manage 5 different services. Instead, you get it all in one easy, affordable package. And now, the big news. Offering Tree makes it easy for you to manage memberships. Annual, semi-annual, tiered offerings. Regardless of types of memberships you offer, you can create them in Offering Tree with the ease of use Offering Tree is becoming famous for. This amazing platform was built by yogis, so you know they get it. Offering Tree also provides helpful tutorials and webinars to keep you growing as a teacher. It's part of their mission as a public benefit corporation. I love their product and their company. They're providing special pricing for MBM listeners. So if you want to spend more time teaching and less time managing your digital presence, then check them out at offeringtree.com/MBOM. Again, that's offeringtree.com/MBOM. All right, now back to the episode. I think that there's a lot of yoga teachers, and you probably have worked with a ton of these in your trainings as well, but where I guess they feel that fear of like, I want to teach full time, but I have this job that pays me well. I don't know what it's going to look like once I'm actually teaching full time. I would love to hear like what that leap looked like for you in terms of, okay, I'm going to leave corporate now and teach yoga full time.
I had so much drama around this. It was ridiculous. I mean, and again, years wasted when I should have just jumped in full time much sooner. Actually, I wasn't even brave enough to hire a coach and get help. But I had a friend who was a coach who I knew actually from corporate who, again, bless him, he just really believed in me. And he was like, listen, I will coach you for like a third of my normal fee because I wasn't willing to invest in myself or my mindset at this point in my career either. So he had to like basically beg me to do it. And he said, listen, I will coach you for this much lower amount, but I think you need to start, really working towards what it is you want to build here. So I have huge gratitude for him that he saw that potential in me, that he, agreed to work with me. And working with him, he made me develop a dream called the Millionaire Healer, which I remember thinking was hysterical at the time. Like we'd laugh about it because I was like, everyone who teaches yoga is poor. Everyone in the healing industry is poor. And he really challenged me to come up with new role models of who I was thinking of when I thought of yoga teachers or healers. For example, instead of thinking of my friends who were yoga teachers who were struggling financially, honestly, most of them who were doing it full time, he encouraged me to look at people like Deepak Chopra or Gabrielle Bernstein as examples of what was possible and to focus on them as my role models instead of the people who didn't kind of have the lifestyle that I was looking to build. So that was hugely impactful. And working with him was huge. He really held me accountable. We really developed this like dream where it wasn't either or, like I could make a lot of money or teach yoga, but I could have both. And I think getting coaching at critical steps in your journey is so important because our habitual mind and our subconscious is so powerful that unless you're really working to reprogram a lot of your thoughts and behaviors, it can just take so long to make progress. And to be honest, you might never make progress. So I'm so lucky that he came into my life and thankfully through working with him, I started to see, wow, investing in my mindset, investing in coaching is valuable. And that's something to this day. I mean, I've probably spent thousands and thousands on coaches and mentors to help me kind of get to the next level.
Yeah, that's definitely a super, super important takeaway for sure. And I definitely agree. Like having somebody who is a step ahead of you or steps ahead of you that can help you like shine a light on the things you're struggling with and also help you see your potential and then help you come up with a plan for actually reaching there is so important. That's the same. I mean, when I started teaching and I started this podcast, I hired a coach as well. And I honestly probably have him to thank for the fact that I even got it live because there was so much fear and so much imposter syndrome. And we all feel that stuff. It's so human to experience that. And I think sometimes we see other people taking action and we think, oh, they must not experience these feelings. Yet they do experience and feel them. It's just that you have to have strategies and tools for being able to push through to get to that next step. And so often having a coach or a mentor can be hugely impactful for that.
Yeah. So he really helped me get mindset wise to where I needed to be. However, I still didn't feel comfortable leaving my corporate job because I didn't have a clear business model. I mean, doing the math, I knew that through YouTube ad revenue, even though the channel had grown exponentially, I knew that YouTube ad revenue and teaching in all these studios that I was teaching at wasn't going to be anywhere remotely close to the income that I wanted to make. So that was still a blocker. It wasn't until I went to this event that YouTube was hosting for its creators. It was called YouTube Creator Day. And they invited some of their up and coming or, bigger channels. I was big enough to get invited to this event, which was a huge deal. I was super excited at the time. And when I went to this event, I met all these people. I mean, I think there were 150 of us or 200 of us at this event. And everyone was either a full-time YouTuber or like very close to becoming full-time. So it was so inspiring because I got to meet and network with so many incredible people who, once I talked to them more, showed me that they actually had built businesses off of YouTube. So as crazy as it sounds, like I had never really connected the dots that YouTube could kind of be a marketing funnel for what would be a larger business selling information products and whatnot. I had no idea about any of that until I went to this event and ended up talking to some really key people there. Again, networking and getting out of my comfort zone. None of them were in the fitness industry. One was a beauty YouTuber. One was a like camera tech gadget type of YouTuber. But he started talking to me about a DVD he had developed. His channel was much, much bigger than mine. He was one of the keynote speakers at the event. But his DVD, when he showed it to me, because he even gave it to me, he was like, yeah, you can have this, because it was about how to, make your videos higher quality using DSLR cameras. And I, while I had film experience, I was not a professional by any means. So I was enjoying asking him questions and figuring out how I could make my videos higher quality. I could tell that this DVD that he had developed was expensive. Like it would have taken, he would have invested a lot of money in developing it. It was like a 3-pack DVD. It was gorgeous. I could tell it was beautifully filmed. It had gorgeous images. And I asked, how much did this DVD cost you to produce? He told me it cost him around $10,000, $12,000 to film and edit and put together. And I was just shocked. I was like, oh, that's so much money. Weren't you so scared? How did you invest that much in your business? Like, weren't you terrified to do that? And he was kind of like, no. And I said, well, have you made your money back? Like, did you make your $10,000 back? And he's like, this DVD's made me over $1 million.
Wow.
That moment changed my life forever, because I basically realized that he had a YouTube channel talking about how to use a DSLR camera. However, he was still able to sell to his audience and his, true followers and fans a DVD about this and a program about this. This is how long ago this was. Now he would just have like a course on Kajabi or something. This is like how many years ago this was. The fact that it was a DVD is like hysterical. But I remember driving home from that event, a couple other key people I talked to too. It was like I suddenly saw that there was a way to do this. I didn't really know what it was going to look like for me. I didn't know how it was going to work, but I just knew that if he could do it, I could do it. if half the people at this event could do it, I could do it. It was just so validating. There was another man I talked to who had a woodworking channel and he made a full-time living off of that, right? I mean, it was just mind-blowing. So suddenly it was like, I didn't have an exact business model, but I could see the path ahead a lot more clearly. And that day was probably the most important day, I mean, aside from the birth of my son and my wedding, of my life, to be honest, because it changed the way I thought about myself as an entrepreneur, what was possible with YouTube and the business forever.
Yeah. Wow. That's amazing. And that's so inspiring to hear. And I'm curious to know, so you get back from this event and you're like amped up about what you can create. So what did it look like? Like, was it creating a membership site? Was it creating a DVD of your own? Like what kind of path did you go down to actually create this business model?
What happened next was the essential, like quintessential entrepreneurial journey of fail fast, which I teach in all my programs and talk about a lot, which is where I basically just started trying everything I could think of to see what my audience would want to buy. What could I sell? I tried everything from props, selling props in boxes accompanied with digital courses. I tried selling like niche products, like just for women who were into yoga and getting married or trying to find love, for example. I tried niche in terms of like people who are really into core work and were interested in that. I mean, it was just like throwing paint at the wall. I was like, I'm just going to try everything until I figure out what it is that people really want to buy from me. And some of these projects were successful. I mean, successful in that I made a couple $1,000s. Some of them flopped. I still had my full-time job. So I was working and experimenting and hustling hard. I eventually decided, again, by networking and talking with a lot of other folks in the YouTube yoga community. And this is another big takeaway I hope a lot of your listeners will walk away with from our conversation, is that, you know, how important it is to network and to be in collaboration with folks, whether that means going to a conference like that one I went to and like meeting people who are doing what you want to do, or just reaching out. I mean, it sounds really weird, but some of my closest friends are like other big fitness YouTube channels, and I've never met them in real life, but we talk every 2 weeks or every month. We mastermind because they know really what it's like, you know, and we trade information and encourage each other. So a lot of times I think the people who you think are like your competition, quote unquote, you want to make all those people your allies and your friends if you just step into a little bit more of an abundance mindset. So I had a YouTube fitness yoga friend who had success with a membership site, and he was telling me that it worked well for him. So I got excited about that. And I decided to try and put something together, like a membership site of my own. That, I would say, was the first product that really felt, this is working, this is scalable, this makes sense. I was selling it by live streaming on Periscope. Again, it's like dating myself, but this is back when, you know, there wasn't any other, like you couldn't live stream or go live on Instagram or Facebook. This is how long ago this was. Periscope was like this cool new app, and it was like the only way you could do it. So I was selling live, talking about how cool the membership was, answering. I mean, the majority of everything I've ever done is just answer my students and my audience's questions about everything, whether it was in a private Facebook group or in the YouTube comments or trying to get them all live with me. It was really always coming from a place of service and being like, what do you guys need? What are you confused about? What do you want help with? And then just everything they would tell me, I would just make that a video, both in the membership and then sometimes also free on YouTube. So it's very much, again, I think a big takeaway hopefully for folks is like how much you need to be in action, because if you're not in action, you're not learning from your customer and letting them educate you about what they want and what they need, because it usually has nothing to do with what you think they want or think they need. So I think that's really been one of the keys to my success, is just how focused I've been on my students. Anything that they would say they wanted, I would create. And what happened is, you know, they told me they wanted kind of a plan of what to do every day in the membership. Like they wanted these training plans. They wanted thematic classes. They wanted to be guided through an experience beyond like a single yoga class. They wanted something that was a couple weeks long or a month long that told them what to do every day. I mean, those were never ideas as obvious as they sound now that I would have come up with on my own. I didn't need like a guide to follow of what yoga class to do every day. I was like super deep in my personal practice at that point.
Mm-hmm.
So I think, whoever your ideal customer is, I call them your avatar in my programs. You need to really honor them, understand them, get inside their head, ask them questions, figure out how you can really best serve them. I mean, that's what worked really well for me.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that advice and everything that you just talked about. So much of that is definitely in alignment with how I teach business as well, and just my experience in the yoga world as well. And I think it's just really inspiring to hear how much success you've had in the online world. And I'd be curious to know, at what point did your teacher training program become a part of your offerings?
About 4 or 5 months, I'd say, into having the membership, the members started to tell me they wanted to do yoga teacher training with me. Again, to me, that seemed insane because like always, you're like, am I qualified? Could I do that? B,
Mm-hmm.
I was like, why online? Like no one would ever do a yoga teacher training online. That's crazy. So I really kept pressing them, but they kept telling me that no, they wanted to do it with me and kind of build on everything we had been doing in the membership, because I was doing a lot of innovative things with the membership in terms of being able to look at people's alignment and go live. Like I was going live on Zoom back, before anyone knew what Zoom was, with people, and looking at photographs that they would send me and drawing on their bodies and like all this, really, because I'm really into alignment. It's a passion of mine, right? So they were like, we want all of that, but like in a teacher training with you. So I started looking into it, what I need to do if I wanted to have a teacher training and be a school. And I went through creating a school and creating a manual and going through all the steps with Yoga Alliance, only to kind of find out as I kept going that Yoga Alliance didn't sanction online trainings. So I was really skeptical if anyone would buy this, because I was like, well, if it's not sanctioned by Yoga Alliance, no one will buy it. So I was just very uncertain, but I kept getting very clear messages from everyone that they wanted to do this. And so I said, you know what, I'm going to do everything by the book, Yoga Alliance, because I also want to run in-person trainings. I can use the same manual I'm developing and the same curriculum I'm developing in person, but I'm also going to pay to film a really high quality online teacher training, which was terrifying because it cost me thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars out of my own pocket.
Mm-hmm.
And I flew some of my favorite teachers from New York out to film with me. I put up a lot of capital. I still had my job, my corporate job at this point. So I was just really self-funding this whole thing. It was a big risk and I was scared. But again, this is like the journey of every entrepreneur. I was trusting what the market and my students were telling me. And what I did, which I also recommend people to do, people have mixed feelings about this, but I think it's wonderful, is I put it up for like pre-sale. So people could pay a deposit to reserve their spot. And the deposit was, I think it was $300. It wasn't a lot of money, but it was enough to signal to me that they were interested, right? This is without me creating it yet. And I had the deposit be like refundable. And, if I didn't end up creating it, they'd have gotten it back. But that helped give me a little bit early signals that, okay, people actually really do want this. Like they're not just telling me in our Facebook group and on social media and on live that they want it. They're actually really willing to put down dollars to reserve a spot to be a part of it. So I remember, I don't know, maybe it was like day 5 or 6 of being on set, filming this whole thing. I hit some sort of number. I was like, if I can get, 15 people, I can't even remember what it was. I knew I would have broke even, right? Meaning covered my expenses for all the filming and
Mm-hmm.
editing and everything that would have to happen. So I remember hitting that number of people when I was on set and like exhaling like the biggest sigh of relief, because I was like, you know what, no matter what, worst case, I think I'm going to make my money back on this thing, assuming these people, actually do it and pay the rest.
Mm-hmm.
And they did. I mean, not just that. I think that very first training I ran was profitable, very profitable, actually. I ended up getting more people than I thought. People didn't care that it wasn't Yoga Alliance approved because they needed something that was 100% online. And what I told them was the curriculum's Yoga Alliance approved. It's just they don't approve online trainings. So what I thought would be a huge blocker ended up not being that big of an issue, because the people who wanted to do the training either really wanted to do it with me specifically because they trusted me and they had been in the community for years at that point, or they were a stay-at-home mom in the middle of nowhere and they had no other option. So for them, it was like online or nothing at all. And that's how the first training basically happened. And I learned so much. I mean, so much. And I ran it, but what's crazy is it's run, how I ran that first training is very similar to how the trainings run now. Obviously there's been changes. I've revised the manual 3 times. We're constantly adding new content, but the basic core structure has remained the same, which is that they have those really high quality videos that I filmed back when I did. And then we're live on Zoom together several times a week. Yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I think it just goes to show, the community that you've created has so much trust in you. Like they're like, it doesn't matter if this is Yoga Alliance certified or not. Like we know the type of teacher you are and the quality we're going to get. And, it's really amazing. Like I'm in a lot of Facebook communities. I have my own. And anytime the topic of online teacher training comes up, yours is always mentioned. So I think that just goes to show like how great of a community you've built and how good of a reputation you built, and the fact that you've created a really great online program. So I think that's like certainly something to celebrate. And I love hearing that, your first one was profitable and successful and that sort of thing. And something that I would love to dive into, especially, now that we're in this kind of, crazy pandemic world where all yoga teachers are virtually teaching online and most teacher trainings are online, is kind of what you've learned about how to create great online programs and great teacher trainings.
Yes. And I can answer that. Tell me that again. I just want to add in one thing, Amanda, because I think it's important for people to know is that I got a lot of hate from a lot of people as well, saying that, online could never be a valid way to learn, that, it was wrong to certify people online. It wasn't like an easy path.
Right.
And that's normal. When you're the first to market or, one of the first to market very early, you're going to get a lot of resistance from people who don't believe in what you're doing. And I 100% experienced that. And around the same time I developed my training, 1 or 2 other people, because when something's percolating, it's usually not just one person. It's like there was MySpace and Facebook, right? Like, and but what was interesting is that the other folks who were very early, like me in this space, they put up like a self-service course, right? Where it's like you just buy essentially a digital course that's a training and you just watch it on your own time. And then I don't know, maybe you submit a video or something. I think what was really a big differentiator from day one, that is why the community loves the training, or I love hearing that you're saying that people have said positive things about it in the groups you're a part of, is because from the get-go, I was like, I want to make this as much like a live training as I possibly can, which means like, yes, for deep anatomy lectures and things like that, it makes sense to have that pre-recorded video, especially so people can rewind and rewatch. But we're going to practice teach on Zoom together. I'm going to get to know every single person who goes through my program. I'm going to create a schedule where every single person has to lead the meditation and talk, so I know you, right? And so your community knows you. And I think it's made the program so much more complicated to scale and to run. I mean, infinitely more complicated. But it's been so worth it, because I think when people go through our training, it's like they feel part of something because it is run live and we are with them every step of the way. as opposed to like, here's this digital course, watch it, get back to us, you know?
Yeah, for sure. I feel like that is a huge key piece. And yeah, I also appreciate you bringing up the fact that, it wasn't just an easy path. I think that that's always important for people to remember because, people are always going to put hate out in the world, unfortunately. And I think that it's really incredible that you were able to push through that because, like, what a shame if you had just run the first one or maybe not even run the first one because you got hate on it and that, that part of your business didn't exist.
And how quickly our world changes too, right? I mean, I was talking to a fellow entrepreneur yoga friend just weeks before the COVID crisis hit. Yoga Alliance was auditing a lot of online schools because I still ran in-person trainings out of LA with another teacher. They wanted to make sure that no one who had taken online was in Yoga Alliance and, kind of really trying to regulate that. And then, lo and behold, it was like 10 days later. Online's approved. Everything's great. We love online. Zoom's the best, right? So it's just so fascinating to me how quickly things can change in an industry. And just for other folks out there, if you're the first doing something or you're, tapping into a new idea or a new market, don't let that resistance and, a little bit of hate get you down if you really believe in what it is you're developing, because it's just normal and you will be surprised at how quickly things change and turn over the course of whether it's years, months, or decades as we, move forward and grow.
Yeah.
So sorry,
Absolutely.
do you want to ask me the original question again? But I just want to make sure to share that because people don't talk about that enough. Like,
no, I appreciate that you did. That's so important. Yeah, 100%. No, I'm appreciative that you did add that in. So thank you for that. And yeah, I think just with the current situation that people are in, most teachers or a lot of yoga teachers have now shifted their business models online. And you've been doing this for years and years. So I would love to hear, some of your top tips, some of the biggest things that you've learned and all of that good stuff.
The advice that I've been giving to my community, which I'm happy to share here, is to really think strategically about a long-term vision for you and your yoga business, your yoga career that is going to meet your financial goals. I think one of the biggest mistakes that I see and that I made myself early on was just, doing whatever, like I'm going to launch this, I'm going to launch that. And I mean, there's a certain amount of just pure experimentation that you have to do so you can figure out what sticks. But what I'm helping people do and what I encourage, and I wish someone had told me to do, was, really think strategically. How much do you want to work? How many hours do you want to work? What kind of lifestyle are you trying to design? What income level do you want? And, forget that it's yoga. Like, it should be anything, whatever you want for financial freedom, for your family, to take care of your parents, like all the things that we do, right? And then really start to think and reverse engineer, like, how can I create assets, digital assets that are going to get me from where I am right now to the financial goal that's actually going to really work for me and my family long-term in the future. And you need to think about those financial numbers upfront. Like, what are those for real? And having that as your guiding light. Because what I saw happen when everyone just rushed online, it was like everyone was just teaching Zoom live yoga classes. Mm-hmm. And with my 300 trainees and my alumni community, I was like, guys, great, do that, dabble in that. It's good to, how to teach on Zoom. And our graduates were so well set up because they'd been teaching on Zoom already. So they were like 6 steps ahead, I think, of a lot of folks. But I said, the other thing I really want you all to think about is just don't go, spend all your time and energy just teaching on Zoom. Think about how can you create a digital asset during this time at home and where you can't be in the studio or the retreat center or all the other amazing things you do that's going to serve you long term. So something that you can sell forever, not just Zooms. So I think that's something people should think about. And then I think memberships. With a lot of my private coaching clients, like, we're really working on the membership model right now because there's never been a better time to do that. Mm-hmm. Because the studios right now are no longer so much for some, you're still teaching maybe through your studio, but I know a lot of the teachers I work with, that's maybe just a small part of what they're doing, but they're also doing stuff on their own, right? And there's actually an opportunity to create a subscription direct to the students if done in the right way, right? Where there's value there. So I think memberships, and then, thinking about long-term digital assets that meet your lifestyle goals in terms of how much you want to earn would be my advice.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. And I think I saw a lot of similar stuff, like people just, teaching on Instagram Live, Facebook Live, maybe setting up Zoom classes. Lots of people were teaching for free, which was very, very generous of them. But for me, I was like, I have a feeling this is going to be more of a long-term thing. Like, you should definitely get your students accustomed to valuing online yoga the same way that they do in person. And you should value yourself online also. Just because it's online doesn't mean that it's not worth anything. And it's been interesting to see like the shifts that have kind of taken place in the industry between teachers and studios and the different things that yoga studios have been doing, since the pandemic hit. And I love the idea of looking at kind of your bigger goals, like putting it as a part of your business plan and your business model, and looking at how much money do I want to make and how do I get there? What do I need to do to get there? I think that that's such an important tip and lesson that you shared. So thank you for that.
Oh, you're so welcome.
And so I know we've talked a little bit about your business, or a lot about your business throughout this, but I'm curious, what are some of the biggest overall business lessons that you've learned throughout your entire career as a yoga teacher, as a YouTuber, as a teacher trainee, online and in person, all that good stuff?
Oh, it's such a great question. Building a team is really important. You can't do it all alone. I mean, pending what your goals are. I was fortunate, I think, in that I recognized the importance of a team very early. So even when I still had my full-time job, before I even transitioned to teaching full-time and the company full-time, I had a virtual assistant. I had one person helping me who's actually still a part of my team, which is incredible because it's probably 7 years now or something that he's been with me. So knowing that you can't do it all yourself and really thinking about creating a dream team that can support you, but you can also support them. One of the things that has been the most rewarding, I think, is getting to pay my team more over time, give them bonuses, see them develop personally and professionally, invest in courses and education for them. It's been so meaningful. So I think even if you're just starting out, like I was, I still had my full-time job, but I knew the importance, or I recognized the importance of, anything that I could get help with so I could focus on the vision and growing the business was worth it. So for many of us, I think, that first task or that first person might look like some sort of VA, right? I think, really staying true to your vision and trusting yourself is another big lesson. In one of my earlier business ventures, years before I, wanted to create this business, I had a business partner and he was wonderful and I love him to this day. But for me, I realized that partnerships didn't work so well. I really like to control every aspect of what's happening. And, I've definitely had to let go of some control as the team has grown and the business gets bigger. But I think really what I see happen to a lot of teachers, I guess, is they're like, oh, well, I'm going to partner with so-and-so and they're going to figure this all out for me. Or they feel too scared to really trust what they want to do and take the big risk of doing it themselves. So they end up partnering with someone or hiring someone expensive to like write their whole sales page or write all their email copy or stuff like that. My rule of thumb is that, I hire out something once I completely understand it. Because then I know I can speak with that person intelligently. And when they tell me, oh, we can't do that, I'm like, actually, no, you can. I've done this kind of editing myself, or I've done this tech work myself. I know you can do that, or can you find a different way, right? So what makes me nervous is when I see teachers just kind of like giving away their power, giving away their, again, I think they just do it because it feels less scary in the moment to like hire someone else to solve your big, scary problems. But what I have found is that is not, it's not the way to go. You really need to trust yourself and your vision and get support, but only after you're really clear on what you want them to do and you understand it yourself completely. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, that was something that was really important to me when I started my podcast, and my husband and I co-host a travel podcast as well. So I knew how to create a podcast, but it was important for me to, be doing the editing on my podcast myself as I started out, and not to be relying on somebody else telling me what they could and could not do, but knowing what the capacity of that was and how I wanted it edited. Because that way, when I did hand that task off and, found somebody to do production for me, I knew exactly what it takes for that job. I know how long it takes. I know what's, required in it. And I knew exactly what I wanted out of somebody who I would be hiring. So I think that's what I heard you saying, at least. Did I get that right?
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah.
Beautiful example. Yeah. Yeah. So those are two big things. And then I guess another last one for a third would just be to really invest in high quality assets that you can hopefully sell your whole life. I mean, there could have definitely been a scenario where I, for the teacher training, was like, I'm just going to film this in my living room by myself with like my iPhone, right? And, it's fine because you can always refilm or reshoot things later. So again, I'd rather you do that and get started than not do anything at all. But I think once you know you have product market fit, your avatar wants what you're offering, invest in your business. Because it can be an asset for you forever, which is so magical. So again, to get started, in my first YouTube videos, oh my gosh, they're so embarrassing and they're still up there so everyone can find them. But like my lighting's awful. It's like blurry. My audio's terrible. But again, I just leveled up each year, right? I got better and better. And then I'm so grateful that even when it felt scary to shell out some money to get something really professionally filmed or really professional content for the membership, eventually, now my mindset, I don't even worry about those expenses anymore. I'm just like, these are assets. I know this is going to pay off. And I'd encourage everyone listening to think that way as well. Again, don't do it if you don't know what you're doing yet, but if you know you have product market fit, invest in your business, whether that means making really high quality video, investing in ads, marketing, team members, teammates, support, whatever it is.
Yeah, I think that's an incredible tip and a great place to wrap this up. So thank you so much for sharing all of that and all of your experience and your knowledge. And for people listening who want to learn more about you, maybe join you for a program, practice with you online, where can they go find all of that?
So just my name, Brett Larkin. So it's BRETT, so 2 T's and then LARKIN. If you just Google my name, you'll see the YouTube channel. You can take class with me, which I would love. And then if you just go to my website, brettlarkin.com, you'll see the Uplifted membership, which is the same membership site that I originally talked about, obviously with a ton of new content added. We're moving through the 8 limbs of yoga right now in a course that I've developed where there's a PowerPoint and whole lesson and then yoga class on each of the 8 limbs. And then of course, 200-hour YTT and 300-hour YTT, which is also a program for people who are trying to, teachers who are trying to put their business online. It's essentially an online entrepreneurship and 300-hour yoga teacher training fused into one large package. And it's so fun. People love it. So that's how to stay in touch.
Amazing. Yeah, I've heard incredible things about your program. So I'll definitely make sure there's a link to all of that. And Brett, thank you so much for your time today and for chatting with me. This has been such an awesome conversation.
Thanks so much for having me on.
All right, friends, I hope that you enjoyed that episode of the podcast with Brett Larkin. Make sure you go check out what she's up to, check out her YouTube channel and her programs, and just see what another online content creator is doing. As always, thank you so much to our sponsor, Offering Tree. If you want to start teaching more and managing less, head on over to offeringtree.com/MBM to get an exclusive discount. All right, that's all from me. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you next week. Namaste. Thank you so much for tuning in for this episode of the podcast. To find links, notes, resources, and everything mentioned in today and all episodes of the show, you can head on over to mbmyoga.com. You can find the podcast and myself on Facebook and social media at Mastering the Business of Yoga. And I would love for you to join the private Facebook community, Yoga Business Badasses. If you have any questions, comments, or feedback, please make sure you reach out to me at info@mbmyoga.com. And last of all, if you enjoyed this episode of the show, please make sure you hit subscribe and leave a review for the podcast. It would mean the world. Thanks so much for listening, and I'll see you next week. Namaste.